All right, so in one sentence, if you had to sum up operating models, it's the degree to which successful businesses must standardize business processes and or integrate data to produce optimized business outcomes. That's a lot in one sentence. As you see over here, the arrow that flows from the bottom to the top is integration. How integrated does information need to be across your organization in order for you to be effective? And then, of course, from left to right, standardization. How standardized does your business need to be effective? So oftentimes what you find is that organizations are striving towards this unification model because they believe that to be the right thing. So when people talk about enterprise architecture, when they talk about what they're trying to achieve as an organization, oftentimes it's in the context of we want to be more standardized, we want to be more integrated. And one of the things that's so powerful about the operating model concept is it takes the position that maybe that's not everything that there is that you need to know about enterprise architecture or about how to transform your business. That it's not that there are business models out there that are more successful on the basis of one of these other quadrants out there, and that you really need to work with your business folks, if you're in the technology organization, to understand what are the drivers for your organization to make you produce the type of outcomes that they're looking for. And so I'm going to talk about each of these quadrants a little bit and the rationale why those things might be important for a business model. I'll give you an example of a type of business that might succeed in that model. And I'm mostly going to focus on the quadrants that are not unification, because I think so much of what we talk about in today's discussion around enterprise architecture is focused on standardization and integration, and not so much on the reasons why you might not want to go that direction. So I'm going to start all the way on the other end from unification in low integration, low standardization. So why would anyone want to not enforce standardization, not be striving towards a more standardized set of business processes? Why would they allow themselves to function in a manner that doesn't drive towards integration of data across their systems and their business units? There's a very clear reason for this. As you become more standardized, as you become more integrated, you're going to lose agility. I know that, if there are folks on the webinar that are, SOA people, things like that, there may be some disagreement on that, but I think it's hard to argue with the idea that if you have less standardized processes, you're going to be more agile. And so the types of organizations that may work really well in this, maybe you're an organization that grows through mergers and acquisitions. And having standard processes or having tightly coupled systems may be an impediment to maintaining the type of growth that you need to in order to be successful. There are a lot of types of organizations out there where they have very specific P&Ls for each business unit. And so if you're going to put the responsibility on somebody to go forward and succeed on their own merits within their business unit, but you're not going to enable them, give them the power to make their own choices, you're going to constrain them with regard to process or force them down a particular application or data integration path, you can't really hold them accountable. So this is an area where I think you really need to think about what your business model is. So as you move a little bit farther, maybe I've talked about why you'd want to be not so standardized, not so integrated. Well, if you wanted to be a little bit more standardized on the process side, if you wanted a replication type business, to give you kind of an easy to understand example, I think, a lot of real estate, you may be very standardized from a process standpoint because, you've got state and local laws, you've got national laws that affect you. So let's say you're Long and Foster, you may be very, very tightly constrained in the process by which all of your individual agents do business. But one of the big drivers for them, the way that this type of an organization moves forward, has to do with competition within the organization. And so a high degree of data integration, sharing all your client lists and things like that is not something that's ever going to occur. individual agents want to maintain their ownership of that data because it's part of how they compete to do business, and it's part of overall for the organization that inter-organizational competition drives forward the overall performance of the organization. And so you can see there's a strong driver towards standardized process, but data integration is a very secondary concern, and in some cases they really want to avoid it because they don't want to end up in a situation where they're furthering their own internal organizational competition. That's just one example. There are a lot of different types of organizations that may feel the same way. So let's go the other direction. Let's talk about integration. So maybe less standardized, but more integrated. I think retail is a great example here, where there's a lot of organizations that I think should be aspiring to a coordination model, because you may want to be able to understand local drivers in the market. You want to be able to put in place processes locally that enable you to meet local market needs, that enable you to meet local market customs. So you may not want to be too heavily standardized on process, but it may be very important for you to understand what's going on across, at a macro level, across all of your stores or your business units that are involved in that retail activity. And so understanding what people are buying as a high-level trend may be something that enables you across all your outlets to understand pricing strategies, to understand what's driving the big picture while still enabling you to meet local market requirements. And so that's, again, I'm in an effort to be concise, just trying to give you a few examples of the types of organizations and why you may want something other than the unification model. I think the unification model, the great example of the unification model would be, a web retailer, something like that, something where they are very singularly focused on delivering very specific types of outcomes on behalf of their client, and everything in that organization is tied towards that activity. The processes can be heavily specified, heavily standardized on. The data integration requirements, the more integrated you can be, the more you can know about your customer, the better off you're going to be. You're able to achieve all of the economies of scale that are so often associated with the unification model because you're heavily standardized, and you're able to understand your customer to that degree. So I think that is an example of a model that works well in unification. So, again, just so that you understand, because this four square chart is going to come up again. As you go up, you become more integrated. As you move from left to right, you become more standardized. And there's obvious implications for all of those. And there is no right model. There's only a right model for your business, and that may change over time.